If you use Mill Road, what do you do with the traffic you're trying to bypass coming up Provo Canyon going out, or that coming down from Park City going to Provo?
I'm not trying to get rid of all the traffic on Earth.
Oh, I think they're only trying
to get rid of mainly the trucks.
Yeah, but the trucks, if you don't realign the state road, you can't tell a truck where to go. You cannot tell a truck it can't use a state road. So if you don't realign Highway US 40, you cannot dictate that a road, if Main Street remains Highway 40 or any other road, whatever road that they get, the truckers can use that. If Main Street becomes a city road,
that's not what I'm talking about.
But then they can restrict the size of vehicles that can drive on Main Street.
You keep talking about Main Street. I'm not. I'm talking about Mill Road as a bypass for those trucks. Any trucker, and I've got dump trucks.
So hang on a second. So we got the idea. We got the Mill Road bypass. We're gonna got that noted and give you your number before you go home tonight. Okay. All right.
Hey Matt.
All right. I'm gonna go to this gentleman. I'll come to you second. This gentleman standing up with the yellow paper in your hand. Okay. Real loud, please.
My name is Bruce Mack.
Can everyone hear Bruce?
No. Stand up.
Give him a microphone. Go up.
Get up on the... Come on. There we go.
There's a ton of people back here.
My name is Bruce Mack. I haven't lived here long enough to call myself a long-term resident. I've been here about 35 years. My grandparents were not born here. To follow up on that gentleman's comment right there, I think we also ought to take a look at the fact that it is very likely that there's going to be a pipeline from the basin to the refineries in the not-too-distant future. I don't know that for a fact, but I've read in many news reports that that is going to happen, and it's a matter of when. If that happens, the tankers will not be coming through our city. Exactly. And that would make a huge difference. That should be considered. And just as a general proposition, this whole bypass issue, 150 million bucks, that's a lot of money. We could do a lot of things with that money for Heber. We have about 1.5 miles of Heber Main Street that's a little overburdened with traffic. To relieve that problem, we're going to destroy the north fields, destroy the south fields, and destroy a whole host of amenities for people who have lived here with the expectation that they'd be let alone. I think the issue should be re-examined. But I have some questions I'd like to ask.
Please.
Over a decade ago, studies were done, including the PEC study dated May 2008, which included extensive public comment and government input that considered traffic through 2030 and potentially through 2050. The decision was made to use Southfield Road as an alignment for both Highway 40 and 189 bypass. Since then, nothing much has changed on the ground, except that a lot of people have moved in to an area where the new realignment is supposed to go. The only thing that has changed that I can see is something that says, don't change the Southfield Road realignment. So, I asked, and I sent an email to the Corridor Planning Group, and they were nice enough to send me an email back, and I asked, what has changed? Why are you doing this? And they responded that the Sewer Board had suggested the change to minimize effects of Southfield Road alignment, and the study group saw an unspecified performance advantage to the realignment. Well, I'd like to make some comments on that and then ask a question. First, the configuration of the sewer fields and Southfield Road have not changed since that study. Second, the proposed realignment will involve about 2.5 times or 3 times as much road distance as just using Southfield Road. So, cost-wise, we're talking about 2.5 or 3 times the cost of using the existing corridor of Southfield Road. Third, proposed realignment will require relocation of at least 2 of the farm's pivots. I walked it. As the realignment has been proposed, and whoever's here from the sewer people can dispute this if you like, but if you realign it the way it's currently proposed, you've got to move 2 of those pivots, and one of them is going to have to be completely redone in addition. The roundabout, who knows what effect that will have on the sewer field. Fourth, the realignment will take the route from a completely unpopulated area, which was previously designated, to and through a very highly populated area. The negative effects on scores of existing residents have to be considered. Fifth, the cost, as I mentioned, the cost of the realignment as now proposed is significantly more, has to be, because of the additional road length than using Southfield Road. So why has this changed? Well, as I said, they said the sewer fields, the sewer board proposed this route. Now the sewer board has backed away from that. They say they have no preference. They say all they want to do is save their land. Well, if you reroute the road the way they've done it, and it's 110 feet wide, the new realignment's going to take about almost 30 acres instead of 10, which Southfield Road would take. So, using the logic of the sewer board, you should go back to the Southfield Road alternative. And when it's not broke, don't fix it. The Southfield Road has been working, the sewer farms have been working, the pivots have been working. Why mess with that? So, has there been any effort, a study, an economic study of the costs of this proposed realignment measured against the previous proposal that was put out there in 2008 when nothing has changed? And has anybody really tried to measure weigh the impacts of cutting through the north fields, cutting through the south fields, and 150 million bucks against using Southfield Road?
Bruce, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the question. So Bruce, I'm going to rephrase your question. So the question is, has there been an updated cost estimate for the project? Let's start there.
No. No, it hasn't.
Particularly for the area that goes through the Southfield Road and the sewer park.
That's not what he asked.
Have you compared the two?
We have not compared the two alignments in terms of cost.
Why not?
Because we didn't have enough money or resources to do that in the planning study.
Is that not a critical
It is.
decision that has to be made before you come up with a proposed route?
It is a very important component. I totally agree, and we will get to that piece along with all the other pieces we need to look at, including wetlands, noise, and other.
So Sean, you mentioned we haven't gotten to that. Why is that?
Yeah, it's just not part of the scope of a planning study, is to look at the detailed cost estimates associated with that. That's part of the environmental impact statement work that
So
would
the
be done.
environmental impact statement would do that type of analysis.
They just said EIS again.
Okay.
Yes, or an EA.
Or yeah.
Sorry, I use that as a collective term.
Okay. I promise this young lady up here.
Hi, so my name is Yvonne Barney. In part of your comments, you had mentioned that part of the reason for this is, you know, we're trying to look into, I'm sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
That we're trying to look into what will happen in the valley in the future. Is that not correct? We've all experienced how much the valley has changed. I have been here for over 30 years, so I can pretty much call myself a local, even though I have no grandparents or anybody relatives, but a lot of people here know me. So the only thing is that we've seen that change. I don't think, and I could be wrong, and I'm not trying to speak for anyone else, we do need a bypass. But the question that I have, and maybe it's not directed to you, but maybe to our local officials that have been in here for the last 20 years, why have we sat on this for so long? That's my question.
No homework.
We have been waiting for this. This is something that has happened. I think 2008 has been thrown out there. We've been talking about this. It's been going around for so many years, and then nothing. Families have moved in. I had one individual tell me, that the access point that we have going through 1300 South, that's been proposed for quite some time. That's not been proposed. That's not true. This is something that's just come into circulation over the last several years. So my question is why? Why have we waited? And here's what I think it is, and it's my personal opinion, and maybe some people agree with me or don't. There's development. We have pressure from a community that houses millionaires and billionaires who would like to have a huge airport over here. Is that not true? Mr. Bauer, you yourself said in your moving into the valley that one of your things that you would like to utilize is our community airport. This isn't going to benefit this community. It will benefit maybe a dozen individuals in this community and a lot of rich people in that community. We are not them.
Let's start with the airport. We actually have a subject matter expert with us on the airport. I'm a new guy, I've not been here a long time, but I keep hearing the word expansion. And so let's have the airport expert to talk about what's actually possible in terms of the airport expansion.
I don't know if I'm exactly the airport expert. I am the chairperson of the advisory committee. I'm a retired airline pilot, so I at least speak the language. As a matter of fact, having been the mayor of Daniel, one of the possibilities with the new study that we're going to do on the airport is whether we move it and become a C category airport as opposed to a B category. We're just starting that study, and we're going to do a master plan starting in June or July. That's going to take a couple of years. The bypass doesn't really have anything to do with the airport. If they change it, that could be one of the possibilities.
Let me finish.
If any of you happen to read the wave, you may have noticed my name at the bottom of a lot of letters to the editor saying I don't want to expand the airport. So if you think you know my position, you're incorrect in the back row there. Yes, ma'am.
Suggested to do the airport expansion in this group, this whole new thing.
Let me ask you, when you say airport expansion, what do you mean by that?
Making the airport bigger, B to C.
In terms of more aircraft flying in? Bigger aircraft? So
More.
Bigger aircraft flying to this airport?
Yes, they can. In the professional world, you can't. If I had ever landed an airplane that weighed 1 pound more than a runway would take, they would hang me from the highest tree, and they should. They're not flexible, they're not negotiable. In the civilian world, that's not true. You can land the pilot has discretion to land any place he wants. Because of damage, he's responsible for that damage, but I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but the fact of the matter is, if you own the airplane, you can land the 747 on a dirt road. It's not a great idea, but you can do it, and that's what we're stuck with here. We've got a lot of traffic that's larger than the design capacity of the runway that we have, and so the airport district office, this is a pretty black and white issue for them. They're the ones that give us money through the grant assurance program. They have to give us $150,000 a year because we maintain a B2 airport, and everything that is, stripes and lights and everything that's a B2 airport, as long as we maintain that, they have to give us $150,000. But there's a thing called discretionary funds, and they don't have to continue to give us that if they don't want to. And I think, as I've mentioned before, possibly in a letter to the editor, this is the starving the villagers in the submission portion of that. We're getting ready to do a fairly expensive study starting in the next couple of months. One of the questions, it's going to answer a lot of questions. As a matter of fact, I've got the circular with me. If anybody wants to look through it, it's 150 pages. I haven't made it through there yet. I will. One of the questions that it's going to answer is, do we have more than 500 operations, that's a takeoff or a landing, of a C category aircraft? Well, every business jet that you see is a C category aircraft. So the answer is, yeah, we have a lot more than 500, and we all know that, living in this valley. So if you have any other specific questions about that, or safety, or whatever, all I can tell you is this bypass thing and the airport are both tough issues. They're separate issues. They don't have anything to do with each other, though. I can guarantee you that.
Hang a second.
I have two questions.
Speak up.
With regards to that, as far as what you're saying, do we have to go to a C class? Because here's my question before anybody else answers it. I was told recently that part of the reason why we might need to expand the airport is because of our affiliation and our funding from the FAA. okay? That there's rules that we are not following and that there's certain things that we are not in code with. Now, from my understanding, the only reason we're not in code is because we are considering going to a C, right? If we stay at a B, we fix anything that we need to and keep it where it is, aren't we okay? That's my question.
I don't know how much time you want to spend on this. I mean, I can do this for a couple of
I
hours.
think it goes to what the fears are that are out there. There's lots of fears that this is being
Absolutely, that's what we want to get to. So let the panelists respond to that. About 3 minutes, if you would.
Let me start off. If I get in the weeds, that's a C category aircraft. Somebody made this number up back in the 50s or 60s. Instead of B category aircraft, and they're aircraft that have an approach speed up to 120 knots. So they say, okay, if it's faster, they need better escape corridors, more runway protection zones, that sort of thing. All of the jets that we see coming in here are C category aircraft. That means they have an approach speed of between 121 knots and 140 knots. So once the airport district office, and these are good guys, they're doing their job. I mean, their job title is expanding airport and airway capacity. That's what they do. They cannot force Heber City, who is the sponsor of this airport, they cannot force them to upgrade. They can't do it. It's never been done in this country. So the answer to somebody's question is no. So we're going to ask 2 years worth of questions and have a public relations firm. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on, and at the end of that time, the political people in office at the time can make a decision based on what they have. I can tell you, there's not a real positive decision there for them. There's not a good choice here. Our runway's only 75 feet wide. As a professional pilot, I don't think it's going to make that much difference with regard to safety. Now, some of the other numbers that I mentioned, the escape corridors, etc., all of it is in the package of safety. But my question for you is, 75-foot runway versus a 100-foot runway. Every professional pilot, all events start right in the middle of the runway where you're landing or taking off. I'm not talking about within 10 feet of the middle of the runway. I'm talking about your nose gears on the centerline stripe. So if we went to a C category aircraft, that would add 12.5 feet to each side of the runway. My question would be, how many aircraft have run off the runway by less than 12.5 feet? So I think there's a lot more questions than answers here, but this is not a done deal, and I can tell you it doesn't have anything to do with 189. If they do move 189, then that will be part of our study of, let's look at that, because we have to look at everything for part of the study.
Let's go.
And then the second question was to the county and to our city.
Oh, that's right. About why have we not built it?
Why have we been sitting on this for so long? You now have families that have moved in. It's just.
Thank you.
We've got Southfield. Let's stick to that.
Let's pitch it to the panel and see what we've got.
So I have a question about the C class.
Hang on one second. We've already got a question on the ground. One moment, please. Tony?
So there has been a tremendous amount of work that's been done on the bypass over the last 20 years, and it's been an evolution. Back in the late 90s, the city really hadn't jumped on board and bought into the concept, and Muirfield was approved, and there's been tough relations between the city and the county over this issue. And the county, most of the time, has felt like they've had to bear the brunt of being the leader, and they actually have. And around 2007 timeframe, the city and county sat down seriously together. Mountain Lands got involved, and what was created is the RPO, a rural planning organization, and it really brought the city and the county together in an organization where they could talk and figure out what they were going to do. You'll hear a lot of the people talk about, well, what about the Mill Road idea? And apparently that was a concept, I don't know, of the 60s, 70s, or 80s for a bypass, and this development was approved along Mill Road, and that disappeared as an option. Same thing has happened along Southfield Road. Muirfield was approved, and there's been other developments that have happened where we're faced with a lot of pressure development pressure. But there's been a tremendous amount of work done on the bypass. If you saw the map that had the yellow, black, red, and green. Yeah, so, yeah, right there. So this illustrates a lot of what's happened. There's hundreds and hundreds and, maybe even thousands of hours of work between your county officials, your city officials, including, mountain lands and now the state. And as more time goes on, we get more and more traffic, and the further elevated it gets. Udot really hasn't been a big part of the picture until recently, but it was pointed out that around the 2007 to 9 era, the county adopted a tax that we all pay, $10 towards our registrations. That has been purchasing land ever since that time frame when this the agreement between the city and county was signed. The city and county are both actively pursuing purchase of the right-of-way. There is a tremendous amount of work that has been done.
Tony, thank you. Let's go to this gentleman right here.
Thank you. My name is John Southwick, and I feel compelled to come up and introduce myself because I represent the 31 homes that are going to be directly affected if they move that leg of the bypass road, or more importantly, 189. It runs parallel and a stone's throw away from our neighborhood. And I know in a community, a growing community of 15,000 people, 31 homes and families probably don't matter that much as far as planning is concerned. But I need to tell you, it matters to us that someone has decided that we're going to move a 4-lane highway right next to our neighborhood. I don't get the decision to actually even move that, since it sounds like if we move from a B to a C category airport, we don't need to move that highway. But all of a sudden, in the second presentation, we didn't see that in the first one, and I was surprised to see that. I don't even know whose idea it was, but I can tell you from a personal perspective, I don't think it's a real good one. I don't think it serves the community well, and I think there's other people here that believe the same way. The other thing that I would say is, what if we just left stuff the way it is? What if we just endured the fact that, we're going to have traffic up and down Main Street, and the people that have moved here and have to commute, poor them, they're going to have to spend a little additional time commuting, because that's the decision that they made to move here. Do we really need to do all of this stuff? I don't know. No. But I wanted you to see a face because I represent a number of families.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Appreciate it.
While the microphone's right here, I thought I would just take a minute to make a comment and ask a couple of questions. I have 2 questions. My first question is, who plans the meetings like this? Because we have an issue here that affects thousands of Wasatch residents, and we plan it in a room that holds 70 people. Yeah. We have hundreds of people outside the building, in the hallways, everywhere they can find a place, and we scheduled this meeting in the smallest room possible in the entire county. Shame on you, City Council. This just shows exactly the planning that has gone into this.
Where is the City and County Council?
They're out in the hallway.
Yeah, they're
So
not
let me respond to your first question.
Okay.
So this is an issue of the county council or city council. This was my call. I met with David, and I met with Jessica, and we brainstormed the idea of a fireside chat. And I thought, here, let's do it in the community room. Not having much idea who might attend. We obviously grossly underestimated it. But I'll commit to you that we'll have another one if you want. We'll have a bigger room.
Absolutely.
I think it's a no-brainer, but this is not the county council, city council. This is not Brower's issue.
Okay.
I obviously grossly underestimated it.
I've been to the other meetings. We've had hundreds of people in those meetings. So to grossly underestimate this means that you're not involved in this. You
No, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair.
Absolutely it is.
But I'll tell you, I'm a quick learner, and if
Okay.
you want to do another one, do a bigger room.
Okay.
What's your name?
Perfect. Hold on, I have one more question.
Please.
My next question, I think it's been kicked around several times. I live right on 1250 South. This would go right behind my house. I'm the same as John Southwick and the other 31 homeowners. This puts it within 80 feet of my back doorstep. So I grew up in Heber City. I'm 43 years old. I'm a lifetime resident. And it's interesting to me that I have zero voice. I'm a business owner in town. I'm a community member. I've come to all of your meetings. Not one time has my comments or questions been responded to from Udot. I've sent emails. No one has been able to answer this question. Why is it that Highway 189 cannot remain Highway 189? Why? I didn't buy a house on 189. I grew up a half a mile from 189. My parents still live there today. I still live a half a mile away from 189. I'm actually okay with the positioning of 189. I didn't buy a house on Highway 40, and I didn't buy a house on Heber Main Street. Why are you moving 189 right into my backyard? Literally my backyard.
And my backyard.
So two questions.
And why can we not use the existing mile and a half that Brady talked about that is already in place, that's been expanded to 4 lanes, and you're moving that to my backyard?
3 questions. So the first one is, Pat, I'm going to toss it to you. Thank you. The first one is, why can't the public be, why can't every email you got received on this project be responded to? Why can't more feedback be given to the public?
So again, we're following our process. We receive comments, we categorize those comments, and we respond to all the stakeholders that are on our email list with those categorized comments. That's how we perform our studies. So I apologize if you were not on that email list and didn't get our responses. We do that after our open houses.
That really wasn't one of my questions.
That was actually the first question.
That was the first question.
My question is, but you're still skipping around.
No, we're going to your second question next. So the second question is 189, right? That was your question is why can't 189 continue to be used, and the portion that has been talked about and be abandoned, why do we have to consider that?
So we never said that it has to be moved. We're saying this is a recommendation for further evaluation.
But why can't
One second, let the panelists finish, please.
Go ahead.
We received public comment to look at that. We investigated every route that was proposed to us at the first open house. That recommendation, through our traffic analysis, proved that it performed better than the other routes.
Then who recommended it? You said you tested recommended routes.
What's that?
Who recommended that route?
It wasn't a developer.
One question at a time.
I don't remember his name. But
are you talking about the
one person changes the whole highway?
Okay,
One
Dennis
person
Gunn.
changes the
My
whole
understanding is that comment came from Dennis Gunn.
One person.
One person. We evaluated every recommendation from every person, but not every one became the recommendation. The one that showed that it performed the best through traffic analysis